and I'm a miracle. Today I want to share with you guys a miracle that God has done in my life. When I was 30 years old, it was back in 2001. I was a very healthy, very active wife and mother. Just going along with my daily life, taking kids to school, making lunches, doing everything that moms do. And I got a really bad pain in my back. And it progressively got worse over the day. And I remember joking to my husband on the phone that I was going to have to go to the emergency room if it did not get better. And actually, over the next 2 to 3 days, it continued to get extremely worse. It moved up my back and into my shoulder. My husband took me to the emergency room and they gave me muscle relaxers. They checked me for a urinary tract infection or kidney stones. They just went through a host of different things that they thought might be wrong with me. Both times that I went to the emergency room and to my family doctor, they ended up sending me home with more medicine that did absolutely nothing to help me. And by about the 4th or 5th day, my house was pretty much infiltrated with family members. My parents were there, my aunt and uncle was there, my mother and father-in-law were coming to visit to pray. They had started asking people in our church to pray, family members to pray, and it was just getting much, much worse. And the turning point came whenever my mom was helping me into the shower and I could not lift my leg up. And by the end of like that maybe 5th day, I realized that I had not been able to go to the restroom all day long. And my aunt, who is a registered nurse, that sent off all kinds of warning signals to her, and she decided that we needed to immediately go to the emergency room to get some care that I needed. So I remember leaving home, and at the time my children were, my daughter Kayla was 9, my son Brandon was 7, and I had never been away from them for more than really a few hours, maybe overnight, for them to stay with their grandparents or a friend. And I remember how traumatic it was for me to leave my kids. And I remember asking my mom, making her promise me that she would not leave them 1 second while I was gone. And so when you're sick, it doesn't matter if you're a little girl or if you're a grown woman, you always want your mom with you. It helps. But I just remember thinking that my kids needed her more than I did. So I left my kids with my mom, and my dad and my aunt and my husband took me to the emergency room. And I remember my husband Danny, he had to lift my feet up and put them into the car because they were getting progressively numb. When we got to the emergency room at our little local hospital, they ran tests, they did CAT scans, and they very soon realized that I needed help that they could not provide for me. So they sent me in an ambulance to UK, and whenever I got there, they took me down for an MRI. And by this time, our church family was there, my in-laws were there, and I remember them bringing me back to this little room, and this orderly or nurse came in and he told us, he said, we found something on your MRI and it's extremely serious. We found an abscess on your spine. I'd never heard of anything like that. My thoughts went to an abscess tooth. Well, that's not a big deal at all. But he explained to us that I had a pocket of infection on my spine, and it was pressing against my nerves in my spinal cord, and that it was not an option, that I had to have an emergency surgery. And I remember feeling completely numb. I remember thinking, this is crazy, because just a few days ago I was healthy and doing all the things that I normally did. But I remember laying there on that bed, and my family was with me, and that doctor told us, I kept asking questions like, well, is there medicine that you can treat me with? Is there anything that you can do besides surgery? Because that seems so extreme to me. And he told me, he said, Miss Gibson, I don't think you understand. If you do not have this surgery immediately, your only other option is death. You cannot live if you do not have the surgery. So I just remember laying there and feeling totally, completely hopeless. It was overwhelming to me. I'd never been sick like that before. I had never encountered anything that severe before. And by this time, I was completely paralyzed from my chest down. I could not move my feet. I could not wiggle my toes. I could not move my legs at all. And the seriousness of it had totally set in, and I realized that I was facing something that was so much bigger than anything that I could take care of, anything that my dad could fix for me. This was nothing that my husband could fix for me. And I realized that I was in a very desperate place.